Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel and welcome to another video. This video is going to be the first of a couple of different videos, I think. Right now we're going through some hectic period, and with we, I mean my wife and I. Right now Aline has a store. I mentioned it on this channel multiple times, a store in crafting and all that stuff. 128 square meters full of crafting and things. I'll try to find or dig up a video or picture and show it to you right now. That's the store. There's a lot of stuff there, and the store is a lot of work. It has been for the last 7-8 years. It's pretty much you open at 10 AM in the morning, you close at 5:30 in the evening, and then we usually had dinner, and after dinner laptops on the labs and started working because all the new products that came in had to be on the website for the day after. So she has mostly been working all evenings. I have been working many of those evenings because I'm just a lot faster at data entry and adding all that stuff onto the website and maintaining the website, all those things. It's been hectic, chaotic couple of years, and we're now shutting down that store, the brick store, and will continue as a online store only, which is totally uninteresting to you probably on this channel, but just wanted to talk to you, just wanted to mention it because the next coming weeks we'll be moving all that stuff. Like 128 square meters has to be packed up into a 42 square meter storage box. Oh boy. So the next few weeks I'll be doing very different things than game development. I'll just be helping out, and we'll have a lot of stuff to do and arrange and plan, and it's gonna be a couple of different weeks. So I'm trying to have these videos up every week. That's the whole point that I'm coming through now, getting to the point right now. I'm trying to have a new video up every Thursday because I just love having those every Thursday videos, and I don't want to skip a few weeks. So that means I'm recording a couple of extra videos here and there, and I'm doing other different type of things. I'm not really working on Regulated City all day, not really working on my other two projects. I'm just doing little things in between wherever I can find time, and then I'll try to make a video out of it. Because pretty much how my week, my own week works as a game developer, on Tuesday I start working on a game project, but I try to work on something in such a way that on Friday I have something to show you and record something for the Thursday after that. Can you still alright, Tuesday, Friday, record it, show it on Thursday. I need to have stuff to record on the Friday. So if I'm not working all week, I don't really have anything to record on Friday. That's the only stressful thing on doing these weekly videos. I need a topic on Friday to record a video about. So I better do something interesting in the days before that, so that I have something to record on Friday. And this week I'm just doing tiny things. First thing up is, because this is going to be a long intro, Survey Questionnaire on Switch. It's going to be the next game we release on Switch, and it has some issues with the interface. We originally had the version that was on PC, but it was all very tiny, so we needed to lower the resolution. Actually, it's pixel art, but we even had to go lower. It's a small screen and not a lot of stuff happening on screen, so we could go with low resolution, but that gave the problem of certain interface elements overlapping or not showing correctly. I can't remember all the issues, but I'm just going to show you the wrong version, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the changes I'm making, how I'm making them, and how they end up in the Switch version or the console version. So that's today's topic. It's gonna still an interesting topic. Just a lot of weird tiny things like this are gonna be probably happening in the next couple of videos. So let's dive in. Right, so this is the new interface, and this is now much clearer, and a lot of this stuff still works, so that's a good thing. But let's go into the game, and actually everything is looking pretty good. We have an overlap here on this one. That's just one of the tiny things. The inventory works because this screen was designed to also work on mobile, so it actually just changes itself based on the interface or the available space. You do notice that things like this, the buttons below the options, are just overlapping, and it's tiny things like that that we pretty much need to fix. The codecs, this stuff is out of the screen. It has to get a little bit lower, but we can fix that pretty easily. And just have to go through all these things and figure out what has to be changed. All in all, I think we don't have a lot of things that need changing. Most of this will work. I just have to check it all, every screen, every option, everything, and then make sure the game is tip-top and ready to be released. So luckily, a lot of the changes I need to make for Success Questionnaire can be done on the PC version. I simply change the resolution somewhat, mimicking the Switch version. It's not perfect or precise, but it's close enough. And then I dig through the code, making well, mostly interface changes. I'm not doing it very clean. I'm just very hacky with this code. Only certain lines are being added that could have been done better. I'm pretty much setting certain variables a second time if it's a desktop or Switch version. But right now just making it all function and work and get this stuff done. I know game development and code, you should make it as clean as possible, but you should also be functional in what you're doing. So just getting this up and running is a lot better than keep tinkering with stuff. Of course, there's also the risk that I'm breaking the version for iOS and Android, which also have a bunch of different interfaces because I can play landscape but also portrait mode. So there's a lot of code there already. Right now I'm just making sure that the Switch version will be up and running and we can actually ship that. So that's the key thing I'm doing here. It doesn't have to be clean, just as long as I add a little bit of documentation of what's going on and why certain things are changed. And then I'll commit all these changes and let me do a little explanation of what that means, because this is all in Java code, my version of the game for the PC, iOS and Android. The Switch version runs in C# in monogame. Let me explain all that. How do these changes end up in that version? Right, so I use Bitbucket, which is a version of Git. It uses Git or all that technical stuff, but I just like the interface a lot more. Over here you see questionnaire and all these commits. This was done just a few minutes ago as I now was setting up the camera so that we can now talk about it. So this is what Serious Lion gets from me. He has to check this commit version. He can get that code onto his PC. And it shows you all the files that have changed or have changes in them. Even an image. I added a couple of little buttons over here that were needed for the codecs. And then it just shows per file that changed and what the changes were. In globals it's just a version number change, so this line is removed and this one is the new one. And it goes through all those changes in every file, and pretty much what you see here, it's usually just some interface changes or placement of things, because the code itself was right or was functioning. We just needed to get certain things correctly positioned on the screen. So it's just a bunch of little changes. But you also see here I removed a empty line. Sorry, that just happens every now and then. There's just some, it's silly formatting, but it tracks and traces all the changes I make to my code, which is great. But it can also be, in this case, it's difficult because, at least not for me, but for him, Serious Lion will have to locate the file, and I guess all the files in monogame have about the same name as the Java version. That would be my guess, because that makes it a little easier. Then he has to figure out where this line actually translates towards the line in his version of the code, and then the modification is pretty easy. This number 32 changes into 16. It will be the same in monogame. 32 is the position on screen, so that is pretty much the same. But still, it's going through all these changes, implementing them in the monogame version for Switch. And then I actually, then he will make a build of that version of the new file, new game, and then I get that to test it and have to play the game again and figure out all these screens and make sure or hope that all the changes I make now are also correct on the Switch version and still work. Some of these might actually need a little tweaking, because I noticed the PC version I was working with, the interface is still somewhat off with the Switch version. There's still some weird change in resolution there, or weird difference, but it was close enough for me to be able to do most of these changes, and I'm confident that most of this actually now fixes the Switch version. We'll just have to go through it one more time, or maybe 2 more times, but we're getting close to actually having that version now up and running. And this is pretty much how changes are tracked. So I figured I show that on this channel. Not every developer uses this, and not every non-developer knows about this. So yeah. So on top of that, as I just mentioned, Java monogame, my source code, my original game code is written in Java. I'll get into that in a minute maybe. But the version that we use for consoles, Switch, also the Atari, and hopefully pretty soon PlayStation and Xbox will also run on the monogame version. Monogame is like a different language. How can I really explain this? All right. Okay, so very basic explanation. Let's say I write my games in Dutch, or write a story in Dutch. Different paragraphs. All great story, awesome story. Everybody wants to read that story, obviously. Now we need that story spread to people that cannot read Dutch, the consoles. So what Serious Lion does is take my story, take all those paragraphs, and every paragraph is then translated into English. Now we have a version for everybody that can read Dutch, PC, mobile, whatever. And we also have an English version for people that cannot read Dutch. Switch, PlayStation, Xbox. But now that I'm starting to add changes to my original Dutch text, let's say I add a whole paragraph between paragraph 3 and 4. So 4 becomes 5 and a new paragraph becomes 4. So after writing that whole new paragraph, I will commit it so that Serious Lion can grab those changes. And here comes the tricky part. Obviously, he will see, he can read Dutch and English. He will notice there's a new paragraph there. The change says so. But now he has to find the English version of paragraph 3 and 4. And he has to move 4 down, becoming 5. And then he has to translate my new 4th paragraph into an English version. And then it still has to function within the rest of the story. It has to correctly connect to paragraph 3 and the newly made paragraph 5, which was 4, but we added something. And that's pretty much how all these changes go. So he has to figure out where it came from, where it has to go, and how it should work within the rest of the code. And once that's done, I get a build of the game, and I get to test it on the Switch and see if everything that's there is actually how I wanted it to be there, and how it is it still or is it actually working. I have no idea if it works, and maybe in English we should use a couple of different words because it's a whole new environment, a whole different audience. They might just want certain things to be more clear or just a little bit more different, and then I'll have to make those changes again, and then he will figure it out. Eventually we have a version, and that's pretty much how these changes work and how they eventually end up in a console version or a ported version of my original code. Okay, so now I hear you say, why am I not creating my games in monogame to begin with? Why am I not using English instead of Dutch? The reason here is, on one hand it's stupid, on the other hand it's just how it is. I'm very fluent in Dutch or in Java, so I like to work in Java. I know everything, I know how to do things. I've been doing it for so many years. That's my go-to language. Language-wise, it doesn't really matter what you use, but also the tools around it and everything. I'm just very used to it, and I'm very fluent at it. If I had to start working in monogame, I first had to learn those tools, have to set it all up, have to figure out what goes where and what does what, and just so many things. And by the time I actually finish or wrap up a project, like right now I'm working on Regulator City, but my next project is already in development in the same tools, because I'm already in those tools for one game, and now I'm starting a new game. I'm not gonna be working in 2 different tool sets, so I'm just sticking to what I know and what I'm using already. So my next game is already in development in Java. It's not in monogame, it's in Java. And yeah, it's a bit of a silly reason. If I just gave myself more time to learn all of that and to really dig into that, or maybe even a whole different platform or a different tool set. There are multiple options out there that would actually allow me to do a lot of this work already on my own. there's still a lot more extra things you need to figure out and do to get games running on console, so there's still work there. Serious Lion is not just translating my game code to monogame. There's more to it, and I'm actually glad that I don't have to figure out all those things, and he gets to do it. And I kind of like how this all worked out. My main platforms are still, or mostly PC, if I can make that work, but here and there I still do iOS and Android releases because there is just extra money to be earned there. And consoles are great, but they're very it's still a very different world compared to PCs and mobile. PCs and mobile is very easy to quickly get stuff out there, although right now on Android Google can take up to multiple weeks to actually approve your game, which is crazy and frustrating. But on PC, if I have new changes or new thing or something, I can just press a couple of buttons and it's out there and people get to play it immediately. On consoles there's just so many hoops to jump through. It's not my main audience yet. It's still a great extra, and it's been worth it for me and Serious Lion, and it's actually been fun working with somebody else and having somebody to spar with and talk to about the games, and I like how it goes like this. The only downside is pretty much that if I see stuff that needs tweaking or fixing, I could normally do it in like a couple of minutes. Now I have to find out what to do, and then I have to tell him where he can find certain things and what probably should change, and then he has to do it, send me back a version. And of course it's also schedules. I have to find time to do this. I had time this week. Now I have these changes made, but now Serious Lion needs to find time to work on these changes so that we can actually test them on the Switch version. So it takes a little more time to get things up and running and done. But that's the only downside, I think, of this cooperation and how we're doing this. Alright, and that's this week's video. That was a lot of stuff. I hope it was interesting to also non-game developers. I'm trying to keep these videos on a certain level that even if you're just interested in games but not a developer, you can still follow along. So I hope that worked out. Next week's video, I'm actually going to record it probably after doing this one, or maybe tomorrow on Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, and it will then be airing on 2 weeks later. It's gonna be probably a Q&A type thing. A few weeks ago I asked for questions, and one person on Twitter, sorry I forgot your name, but it will be mentioned next week, had a bunch of good questions. Some of those I already covered on the channel, but it's great to rehash them maybe. So that's gonna be next week's video, a bunch of interesting things. And I might have an idea for another video, but that's gonna be depending on you guys a little bit. In the comments below, I was thinking about maybe doing a Q&A with a game developer's wife, and I will ask Aline to do the video with me. So if you have questions for Aline as a wife of a game developer, drop them in the comments below or mail them or whatever. Let me know. I don't think she's watching this video because as this goes live, we are actually in the middle of moving and packing up all that stuff. But in the comments below, drop if you have questions for a game developer's wife. Drop them in the comments below. It can be anything. It's just going to be a fun little video. Keep it light. Keep it all ages and family friendly. And let's try that. If there's no questions, it's going to be a different video. But let's try that. And thanks for watching this video. Like, subscribe, comment below for that stuff. And see you next week. Bye.